Tony's Topics. What's happening? My name's Tony, and this is Tony's Topics. Guess what we're going to talk about today? The Seahawks. They're back. After a rough start to the season, the Seahawks were looking kind of lackadaisical. You know, they won their Super Bowl trophy, and everybody was doing a commercial. Marshawn Lynch decided that he wanted more money, and Golden Tate got traded, and a lot of other players got offered good deals and stuff after they became stars in the Super Bowl. You know, they basically had that monster season, and then it almost seemed like they were getting picked apart. And so at the beginning of the season, it was just like the Seahawks couldn't get it together. You know, they were losing to teams that I wouldn't expect the Seahawks to lose to. And then all of a sudden the Harvin trade came, right? And I was like, wow, is it just over or something like that? But then when you look back at it in retrospect, I'm thinking to myself, was Harvin ever really needed? From what I heard, Harvin only played 3 games under contract? No, 8 games under contract. And some people said that the only game he played, because granted, I'm still a little bit new to football, but they say the only game he played for the Seahawks last season was the Super Bowl. Now, make no doubt, in the Super Bowl, Harvin ran up and down the field on the Broncos. But I think it kind of seemed like the Seahawks had already made a dent. They pretty much had already struck blood and were doing pretty good before Harvin had that punt return. You know, so, he contributed, make no doubt. But it just kind of looked like the Seahawks were already manhandling the Broncos after last year. So I was kind of really sad to see, because I was kind of banking on the Seahawks, following up. They just seemed like a really good defensive team. Russell Wilson seemed slick as oil, a guy who can run the ball, who can throw the ball, and who is extremely hard to sack. That guy knows how to get himself out of trouble. It's like, he's got that spider sense, man. Somebody's trying to tackle me, and he gets out of the way. So between him and, between all of his good options that he could pass the ball to, Kearse Baldwin, and now there's the other Wilson and stuff, Turbin and Marshawn Lynch, it just seemed like that offense was really together. And the defense was ripping people apart. So I was really saddened to see how the Seahawks were getting off to a start this year. And I was freaking out. I was like, wow, is it just over like that? One and done? But now it seems that the Seahawks are bringing it together. They've got all this money freed up by releasing Harvin's contract and trading it for a couple of whack draft picks or whatever. It seems they have a ton of money freed up, and for a minute there I was going to say, okay, well, they freed up all this money. When are they going to go and spend it on defensive players? And so far, I haven't heard about them making a move, and that seems to be working for them because all of a sudden, the Seahawks have, the third best defense in the NFL? Who saw that one coming? All of a sudden, the Seahawks are back at a record of 6-3, and they've got the third best defense in the NFL. Sweet. Not to mention they have one of the top offenses too, at least the running game. The Seahawks, I think, have they got the number 1 rushing game in the league. Okay, so you can't outrun the Seahawks. And so there you go. That's the kind of team they were last year. They were a running team last year. Russell, they've got Turbin. Marshawn Lynch, by the way, looked amazing that last game against the Giants. Honestly, it was like Marshawn Lynch seemed a lot faster. Was I the only one that noticed that? Because normally, Marshawn Lynch has always seemed strong, like it's going to take 2 guys to take him down. But last game, he was fast and strong. And I was like, whoa, he's really ripping them apart. So it was really nice to see the Seahawks kind of bring it back together and come back together. That offense, again, I've already mentioned the offensive factors that they have. So they've just got a ton of offensive options. And then, Sherman might not be getting as many interceptions this year, but he is definitely shutting down top receivers in the game. And so, the only thing that I could wonder about is that maybe they need to invest in the blitz a little bit better, invest in their defensive line. And I say that because I was talking to somebody, and he was like, and I was like, you know what, the NFL nowadays is all about your quality of cornerbacks, right? Having the best cornerbacks out there so they can stop all these, Hail Mary passes that it seems every quarterback in the league is throwing. So I'm like, you need to have great cornerbacks that can somehow manage to keep their eye on their man, hands up, to prevent him from catching the ball and be able to look back and catch the ball for the interception. And he said there's just not that many players that are that good. And there's really not. There's one Revis, there's one Sherman, there's only a few guys out there in the league that can actually play that position really well. But any good quarterback has at least 5 options at any given time. And then if you talk about a quarterback like Russell Wilson, he is the 6th option. Okay, he is running it. At one point, he was leading his team in rushing. The quarterback was leading the team. He was the top rusher on the team. So, with that being said, I'm just happy to see the Seahawks get it back together. They had a great year last year. A lot of things blew up for them, and it looked like they were almost falling apart, but now it seems that they're getting back into who they are. I mean, Russell Wilson he divides up his play. Sure, Marshawn Lynch is the go-to guy, but he's hitting everybody out there. Baldwin's getting his catches. Kearse is getting his catches, if I'm pronouncing that man's name right. The other Wilson, he's getting his catches. Turbin's getting his chance to run the ball. So, and Russell Wilson's running the ball. So, you just almost don't know what the Seahawks are going to do offensively. And defensively, it looks like they're getting back into what they are. But at the same time, some teams are scoring just a little bit too high. And now I know you've got the money freed up from the Harvin trade, so I'm like, maybe you want to invest it into a better defensive... Well, I mean, you have a great defensive line, so don't mess it up if it's not broken. But if there's any way to strengthen that blitz, because I'm quite sure Peyton Manning wants some revenge. And if you end up playing him again, or Tom Brady, you really want to put some pressure on those guys, because 3 seconds is all they need to kill you. Thanks for watching.